Bruce Willis wasn't supposed to be an action hero. He was a wisecracking TV actor, charming audiences with laughs, not stunts. And then Hollywood handed him Nakatomi Plaza. And suddenly, he became the guy you rooted for, even when he was bleeding, panicking, and clearly outmatched. Bruce Willis shot into the spotlight as David Addison on Moonlighting, a genre-bending detective dramedy that felt like screwball comedy meets Private Eyes, with romance, snark, and improvisation in equal doses. The show wasn't just a hit, it was award-winning. Willis snagged the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a comedy series in 1987, marking his first major accolade. At the time, nobody expected this TV darling to walk into the Die Hard set and become a standard-bearer for Hollywood action heroes. He was the street-smart PI you'd watch after dinner. But Hollywood had a different stage in mind. In 1988, Bruce got the call to play John McClane, a role originally eyed for Schwarzenegger-style action stars. Executives balked. A TV comedic actor? As an action hero? Risky. Bruce was underestimated, and he used that. He brought Jersey grit, deadpan charm, and real-world vulnerability, where muscle used to be the default weapon. Die Hard changed the action genre overnight. It wasn't about indestructible soldiers, it was about a sweating, bleeding cop who was just trying to save his wife. Critics and fans responded. The film grossed over $140 million globally, spawning a franchise that reinforced the everyman appeal. McClane's everyman edge inspired future heroes, from Matt Damon's Bourne to Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt. Willis created a blueprint, relatable yet heroic, flawed yet unbreakable. So, our sarcastic everyman from Nakatomi Plaza is now a bona fide action star. But how do you go from being the guy who sweats through vents to the guy whose name alone fills theaters worldwide? This is Bruce Willis's peak, late 80s to 90s, a period when he proved that vulnerability and box office muscle could coexist. Following Die Hard's runaway success, Bruce returned as John McClane in Die Hard 2, 1990, and Die Hard with a Vengeance, 1995. Each sequel escalated, bigger stakes, more locations, higher budgets. Critics sometimes grumbled about formula fatigue, but audiences didn't care. Grossing hundreds of millions, the franchise solidified Bruce as Hollywood's go-to everyman hero. He wasn't invincible, but audiences rooted for him because he wasn't. Unlike Schwarzenegger or Stallone, whose action heroes were muscle-powered statues, Bruce's strength came from resilience, wit, and relatability. He gave the audience someone they could imagine themselves as, not just idolize. But McClane wasn't the only stage. Bruce was about to prove he could headline massive blockbusters outside of a single skyscraper. In 1997, The Fifth Element cast Willis as Corbin Dallas, a futuristic cab driver turned savior. The role demanded charm, humor, and gravitas. Willis brought the grounded everyman to a wildly stylized sci-fi world, which could have easily turned cartoonish in lesser hands. Fun fact, Luc Besson wrote the part with Willis in mind after seeing his mix of humor and toughness in Die Hard. Bruce balanced absurdity with credibility, keeping audiences invested even when Jean-Paul Gaultier costumes and flying taxis dominated the frame. Then came Armageddon, 1998, where he played Harry Stamper, the rugged oil driller sent to stop an asteroid from destroying Earth. Critics called it over the top, but the movie grossed over $550 million worldwide. Why? Willis sold the emotional stakes. His Harry wasn't just heroic, he was human, funny, and heartbreaking when forced into sacrifice. From futuristic cabbies to asteroid-fighting dads, Bruce was proving something crucial. He could carry a movie without breaking a sweat, or the audience's suspension of disbelief. Compare Willis to Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. Massive physiques, one-dimensional bravado, larger-than-life personas. Bruce brought personality. He could be scared, sarcastic, vulnerable, and still save the day. This made his characters more relatable to audiences. You weren't watching a demigod. You were watching someone like you rise to the occasion. That relatability is a cornerstone of his legacy, and it explains why sequels like Die Hard with a Vengeance and other blockbusters remain beloved. By the late 90s, Willis wasn't just a box office draw. He was part of pop culture lexicon. Lines, gestures, and jokes from Die Hard and The Fifth Element became memes and references in TV, commercials, and other films. Willis's films blended spectacle with human stakes. The blockbuster formula began to shift. Audiences wanted heroes they could laugh with, fear with, and cry with. He pioneered that hybrid before the rise of franchise superheroes. Bruce wasn't just surviving skyscrapers and killer asteroids, he was reshaping what an action hero could be. But just when he seemed untouchable, Hollywood tossed him a curveball that would test his range, and the critics' patience. By the early 90s, Bruce was a reliable box office draw, but risked being typecast as the snarky action star. Enter Quentin Tarantino, who cast him as Butch Coolidge in Pulp Fiction. Butch isn't a superhero. He's a flawed boxer, desperate, morally gray, and entirely human. Bruce had to embody fear, cunning, and vulnerability, all while keeping a sardonic edge. Audiences loved it. Critics noted that Willis stole scenes without stealing the movie, a skill that became his trademark. He wasn't just believable, he elevated the material. Fun fact, Tarantino originally envisioned a younger actor, but Bruce brought the gravitas and real-world toughness that made Butch unforgettable. From bulletproof cops to morally gray boxers, Bruce showed us he could pivot, and pivot hard. The Sixth Sense marked another radical departure. Here Bruce played Dr. Malcolm Crowe, a psychologist helping a boy who sees dead people. No fists, no explosions, no witty quips, just subtlety, empathy, and quiet tension. His performance anchored the film's suspense and emotional core. Audiences didn't just believe the plot, they felt it. The film grossed over $670 million worldwide and earned 6 Oscar nominations, cementing Willis' status as a serious actor capable of more than action. The contrast between McClane's physical heroism and Malcolm Crowe's emotional heroism highlighted Bruce's range. He could make you root for someone bleeding through vents, or someone quietly confronting grief. Explosions or whispers, Bruce could make you care, sometimes more than you wanted to admit. 12 Monkeys. Bruce played James Cole, a time traveler haunted by visions torn between sanity and duty. Dark, complex, and cerebral, a far cry from John McClane. Critics praised his ability to navigate psychological depth while remaining relatable. The Fifth Element. As Corbin Dallas, he bridged sci-fi absurdity with grounded human charm. Audiences laughed, rooted, and swooned, all at once. These roles were experimental, risky, and wildly different from his action persona. But they reinforced a pattern. Bruce wasn't just reinventing himself, he was redefining what it meant to balance mass appeal with artistic credibility. Bruce Willis had conquered skyscrapers, asteroids, and psychological thrillers. But Hollywood in the 2000s, not so kind. Suddenly the everyman hero had to survive something even more brutal than villains, the industry itself. After the explosive 90s, Bruce found himself in a cycle of sequels and formulaic action films. The Whole Nine Yards, Bandits, Hearts War, and Tears of the Sun. Many films repeated familiar tropes. The grizzled, witty, reluctant hero facing predictable enemies in high-stakes situations. Box office results were decent, but critics started pointing out a lack of innovation. The everyman hero that once felt fresh and diehard risked becoming a caricature. He survived Nakatomi Plaza and killer asteroids, but could he survive Hollywood's obsession with formula? As the decade progressed, Willis increasingly appeared in films released directly to DVD or video on demand. These projects often had tighter schedules, lower budgets, and less creative freedom. Some critics argue he may have been overworked, taking projects quickly to stay visible in a changing market. Fans noticed the charisma was there, but the material sometimes wasn't. Debates flared. Was Bruce choosing quantity over quality, or was Hollywood limiting his options? Regardless, the narrative is clear. Bruce was still giving his all, but the films around him were increasingly forgettable. His brilliance had to shine through formulaic scripts, making his performances all the more impressive. Despite uneven projects, Bruce remained iconic. References to his 90s peak persisted in memes, commercials, and internet discussions. Fans debated online which Bruce Willis era was better. The early 2000s films became fodder for conversations about Hollywood's treatment of mid-career stars and the perils of franchise fatigue. This era set up an important narrative for his later years. A beloved hero confronting fragility, exploitation, and the inevitability of change, both on-screen and off. In March 2022, Bruce's family publicly revealed he would retire from acting due to aphasia, a condition affecting speech and cognitive abilities. The news shocked fans worldwide. Bruce wasn't just a character on screen anymore, he was a person facing vulnerability, a stark contrast to the invincible heroes he portrayed. This era cemented him not just as a cinematic icon, but as a symbol of human imperfection behind larger-than-life personas. fans could now celebrate his legacy while empathizing with his real-life struggles. If Hollywood taught us to worship invincible heroes, Bruce reminded us that even legends are human, and that humanity can be just as heroic. Today's blockbusters feature superheroes with godlike powers. Iron Man, Thor, Doctor Strange. Impressive, yes, but distant, hard to relate to. Bruce's heroes were relatable. They were the guy next door forced into extraordinary situations. They bled, joked, and sometimes failed, but they persevered. This contrast is key to understanding his lasting appeal. While CGI heroes dominate box offices, audiences still remember, and root for, the human stakes Bruce delivered. Bruce's mix of humor, vulnerability, and toughness influenced an entire generation of actors and filmmakers. The sarcastic everyman hero archetype pops up in movies like Kingsman, Deadpool, and even John Wick. He also bridged the gap between blockbuster spectacle and indie credibility, inspiring actors to straddle both worlds without losing audience trust. Think about it. Die Hard isn't just a movie, it's a template. Other films mimic its pacing, stakes, and character design, all rooted in Willis's unique style. Bruce didn't just act in movies, he shaped the DNA of modern action storytelling. Even with his retirement due to aphasia, Bruce's presence remains a cultural touchstone. Interviews, iconic moments, memes, and debates continue to circulate online. Bruce's career arc, from sitcom to blockbuster, reinvention, exploitation, and retirement, serves as a case study in Hollywood's evolution and the human cost of fame. So while CGI heroes save fictional worlds, Bruce saves something else: our belief that humans, ordinary, flawed humans, can be legendary.